Welcome to Good Morning Transfers. We start with breaking news, and it's a deal we've been expecting to happen. Kalvin Phillips is now a West Ham player. He's completed a loan move from Manchester City. The deal moved quickly this week. He returned from Abu Dhabi, went straight to London and had his medical yesterday. And now, in the last few seconds, it has been confirmed the deal is now done. A very good morning to Dave Reed, Flex, and James Savendra. Dave, what's Kalvin have to say about the move?
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying that it's moved quickly this week, but it has felt like a long time that Kalvin Phillips has been waiting to move on from Manchester City. And I think there's a sense of relief in the quotes that Kalvin Phillips has given to the media today as well. We can go through a little bit of what he's had to say. He says, I'm really pleased to be here. There's always been a lot of speculation about me moving to West Ham, so I'm really excited to get going now. There's so much to look forward to in the second half of the season for the club, and I can't wait to be a part of it. He goes on to say, there's an unbelievable group here, and if I can come in and add the quality that I know I'm capable of, I'm sure we can give the West Ham fans plenty to be excited about between now and the end of the season. Those quotes just reaching us from Kalvin Phillips this morning.
And James, David Moyes has also spoken, hasn't he?
Yeah, we know David Moyes has been such a long-term admirer of Kalvin Phillips. He tried to sign him in the summer of 2022 when he left Leeds and went to Man City, but finally David Moyes has got his man. He said, we're really pleased to bring a player of Kalvin's quality to West Ham United. We've been big admirers of him for a long time. We believe that he will add strength and competition to our squad. Kalvin is an England international midfielder with proven Premier League experience. We're excited to welcome him into the group and look forward to working with him. So he's all set to team up with his teammates shortly and could feature next Thursday on deadline day against Bournemouth.
And you will be there.
Can't wait, can't wait. Maybe some more signings as well. Maybe there's still a bit more work to do in this window.
And just looking at the deal in more detail, it is a straight loan, no option to buy. Can you understand why there isn't an option to buy?
Yeah, I can. Obviously, both parties were looking into that option to buy. It's something they've discussed, but I don't think they could agree upon what the right price would be at the end of this loan in terms of the price they'd pay, because let's look at City's point of view. 18 months ago, they paid around £42 million to sign him on a 6-year deal, so they want to recoup as much of that money as they can. But on the flip side, West Ham will be thinking, well, he's not played much for the last 18 months. We don't want to look to buy him for £30 million or anywhere near that, because we're not quite sure what we'll be buying. So it makes sense. It would be a risk. But, of course, there isn't the option to buy. But at the end of this summer, maybe has a really good Euros with England as well, and then that price would bump up a little bit more. So I think it leaves both clubs in a decent position. And, of course, it doesn't mean that Kalvin Phillips won't move to West Ham in the summer. It just means, as part of this contract, there isn't a fee in place at the moment. So there still will be time to negotiate. It's a chance for Kalvin Phillips to show just what a good player he is. It's been such a difficult time for him. It's a chance for him to help lead West Ham to more glory in Europe this season and to continue to rise up the Premier League table too.
Flex, who would you say the straight loan move benefits more, Manchester City or West Ham?
I think it leaves them both in a really strong position, actually. I think from West Ham's perspective, they don't have to nail themselves down to saying we must buy Kalvin Phillips with an obligation for X amount of money, maybe 30, 40 million pounds, which obviously Manchester City will want to recoup as much as what they paid to Leeds for him. But from the side of Manchester City, it leaves that sort of valuation open to fluctuate. If Kalvin Phillips goes to plays extremely well for West Ham now, and maybe they agreed an obligation of £30 million and he's unbelievable, they might say, we could have got 40. We could have got more, who knows? So I think it actually leaves both clubs in a really good position. And for Kalvin Phillips as well, it sort of takes the pressure off him as well. You can look at it two ways and say, well, maybe he doesn't have the security of a long contract, etc., etc. But I think he'll be fine in that respect in terms of finding a club. And it doesn't put the pressure on him knowing that there's a £40 million price tag on him or a £35 million price tag on him where he has to live up to that. And if he doesn't, then he's going to be stuck with a club who doesn't really want to pay the money for him if he's had a tough time. So I actually think for the player and both clubs, it's perfect.
Win-win-win.
Yeah.
Dave, we know a lot of clubs were interested in him. Would you say West Ham is the right club for him out of those clubs that were interested?
Yeah, I think just going back to what Flex was saying, I think it feels like everybody's quite relaxed about the whole situation around, an option or an obligation not being agreed at this stage. I think, there's a temptation maybe for West Ham supporters to get a little bit jittery about that, the fact that they've not been able to secure an option to buy, and maybe they might be thinking, he could play well and then move to someone else in the summer. Of course, that might well happen, but I think from both sides what we're hearing is that there's a little bit of relaxation around, OK, we haven't been able to do it now. That's not to say that we won't be able to do it in the summer, whatever happens to Kalvin Phillips. In terms of other clubs, I think West Ham is the right club for him right now. And I think, given all the speculation that he's pointed to himself, I think it was, significant for him to get this sorted in this particular transfer window. The interest from Crystal Palace was genuine. It was there. He would have gone straight into the team. Perhaps the financial package on offer from Crystal Palace wouldn't have been able to get close to what West Ham are able to offer and perhaps what Manchester City were looking for in terms of covering his wage packet for the rest of the season. Newcastle, I think that the interest from them was genuine in this window, but it seems the timeline on this move has almost counted Newcastle out because they've not been able to shift anyone. We've talked about it for most of the window. Yet, anyway, Newcastle haven't been able to shift anyone. Obviously, we're going to go on to talk about potential outgoings at Newcastle. And I think from West Ham's point of view, he'll go straight into the team. It's, he's going to get Premier League action, he's going to get European football. And, I think the prospect of West Ham being on an upward trajectory right now is something that would be a factor too.
And the shirt suits him, doesn't it? Some players just don't look right. Like Declan Rice looks slightly strange in the Arsenal shirt, but it looks right as well. Right, James, you've been taking a look, haven't you? What kind of impact he can have on this West Ham team? What is he going to give to West Ham?
Well, first, it's a sign of West Ham's ambition and David Moyes' belief in the player that they've been able to bring him to East London in the first place. There's been interest from a number of Premier League clubs and from European giants as well, such as Juventus and Barcelona. And these clubs have not been put off by what has been a forgettable 18 months on the field, at least, for Kalvin Phillips. And that's laid bare when you consider the number of minutes he has played since joining Manchester City. Signed for around £42 million in 2022. But look at the percentage of minutes where he's been available. Only played in 7.7% of those minutes where he's been able to play for Pep Guardiola. Now, those two Premier League starts, as you can see there, they came in May of last year. City had already won the title, and their focus was on preparing themselves for the FA Cup final and the Champions League final too. And this season, he's yet to start in the top flight. He's played just 19 Premier League minutes since October. Things clearly haven't worked out at Manchester City, and we wait to see if he returns in the summer. But if this is the end, then at least he had some trophies to show for it. 5 major trophies in his 18-month spell so far at Man City. But you can see the games that they've come in. Just 6 competitive starts. I mentioned those 2 Premier League matches against Chelsea and Brentford in May. Last season, he started just once in the FA Cup, once in the Carabao Cup. In terms of this season, his sole starts came against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup defeat and in that dead rubber in the Champions League against Red Star. Now, West Ham's midfield, we know, has been completely revamped since selling Declan Rice to Arsenal in the summer. They've bolstered their ranks with the signing of James Ward-Prowse, Edson, Alvarez. Thomas Souček has been a constant for West Ham over the last 4 years, and he's signed a new contract until 2027. So it's going to be interesting to see how David Moyes fits all these pieces into the midfield jigsaw puzzle. Souček and Ward-Prowse have struggled as a midfield duo, so perhaps we see Alvarez and Kalvin Phillips as a double pivot, maybe Ward-Prowse further ahead, Souček potentially being the player to find himself on the fringes. But with West Ham fighting on both fronts in the Premier League and the Europa League, all 4 will be vital in ensuring a successful end to the season. Flex, when you consider the midfield options that David Moyes now has at his disposal, how do you think he'll look to fit Kalvin Phillips in? We've seen him as a box-to-box midfielder for England, but so successful for Leeds as the deepest player, that number 6 role.
Just quickly, I've got to say, I thought we was going to get a weather update over there. Oh, that was brilliant.
Well, it was raining as I came in. I don't know what it's like now.
That's absolutely brilliant, James. Thank you for that. How does he fit in? Listen, I actually think, like you said, Thomas Souček, actually will probably be the casualty in this. And he's a player who sometimes, if he's not in the best form, it could be fairly limited. But when he's in his best form, he's an honest player, he knows his job, he's going to chip in with goals, he's an aerial threat. But like I've said throughout this whole transfer sort of saga with Kalvin Phillips waiting to get to West Ham, the best version of Kalvin Phillips versus the best version of Souček, should I say, alongside Alvarez, I think would be really what David Moyes is looking for. And you see what James read out about the quotes from David Moyes about them trying to sign him from before. We've been long admirers, we can't wait to have him here. He's playing. He's playing. So I think actually him alongside Alvarez, which would free up James Ward-Prowse to go roaming, go behind, Jarrod Bowen, obviously Mikel Antonio to come back as well. Or if they want to be a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more stable, they can play in, you can slot back into a 3. So it does give them a lot of options. And then when they're ready to maybe go a little bit more direct, Souček can come in as well, and they can mix it up a little bit. So actually, it gives an extra string to West Ham's bow.
Yeah, well, we'd love to hear from some West Ham fans this morning as well. Let us know, how happy are you about this loan move? Does he look good in the West Ham shirt? Where does he fit into your team? Use the hashtag GMSF on X. Not GMSF, sorry, that's the show I normally present. What is it? Good morning, transfer talk. There we go. You could use the hashtag GMSF, but hashtag transfer talk. So Phillips' time for now at Manchester City comes to an end. This is what Pep Guardiola had to say about the midfielder yesterday.
Hopefully he can play the minutes that he deserves and I could give them to him.
I mean, it's just not happened for him here, has it? It's never appeared as though he could get a regular place in your side.
That's what it is. So I wish him was, I said many times, an exceptional human being and even a football player. Otherwise, would not be in a national team from UK, and so hopefully, he can prove what really it is.
Right, so what is going to happen in the summer? Do you think, Dave, there's any possibility of him playing for City again?
Difficult to see right now, despite what Pep Guardiola has said there about, there is an opportunity for him to come back to Manchester City in the summer. It just doesn't seem likely, given the track record that we've already pointed out today. And, I'm not expecting Pep Guardiola to come out yesterday and kind of dump him on live TV. It's just not going to happen.
And he's always liked him, hasn't he, as well?
Exactly, he's always
never
liked
to do
him.
With that.
And also, if he turns around and says there's no future for Kalvin here, then it damages Manchester City's negotiating position when it comes to the summer as well, because clubs might try and lowball them on the fee. So I wouldn't expect that, but it does look difficult to see a future for Kalvin Phillips at Manchester City. And, we've pointed out the number of starts he's made, but even if he's on the bench for Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, just in general, in broad terms, doesn't like to use substitutions. They've made the fewest substitutions this season in the Premier League, and it averages out at 2.6 per game, even though there's 5 available to him. He doesn't like to change things mid-game. So even if Kalvin Phillips thinks I can go back and maybe I'll get a few opportunities off the bench to impress, it's not going to happen.
I think Dave makes some great points there, and Pep Guardiola was never going to shut the door on Kalvin Phillips yesterday, but it felt like he shut the door on him in December with his comments when he said, I visualised some things and visualised the team. I struggled to see him in it. I feel so sorry for my decision, which almost felt like concluding remarks that was the end for Kalvin Phillips. So I wouldn't expect to see him in a Manchester City shirt again. But of course, they want to keep that negotiating power, because if he does brilliantly at West Ham, if he does well in the Euros for England, then perhaps his fee could go up and up. And in the end, Man City will probably think if they get a decent chunk from him in the summer, then it's been a rare failure from their recruitment department. It hasn't been the right fit, but it won't be too bad financially if they are to get a good fee from him in the summer. We wish Kalvin Phillips well. It's been a really difficult time. He's a great character. Gareth Southgate has been so loyal to him, and now his loyalty will be repaid because he's going to get some opportunities for West Ham now.
OK, right, West Ham fans, keep your thoughts coming in using the hashtag #TransferTalk. How happy are you that Kalvin Phillips will be playing for you for the rest of the season? Well, still to come on Good Morning Transfers, we've got news from Chelsea, Arsenal and Crystal Palace, so stay with us. Welcome back. Let's take you to day 2 of the first test between India and England in Hyderabad. Not much for England fans to get excited about right now. They really need some wickets. India building a strong lead in the first innings. Jadeja on the verge of getting his half-century. India currently 321 for 5, leading by 76 runs with 5 wickets remaining. We'll keep you updated here on Sky Sports News. We're back to the transfer stories now because we have a lot to get through, and we'll start with Wolves. Gary O'Neill has admitted that he's struggling to bring in a striker this window. He's already let go of Fabio Silva, Sasha Kalajdzic, so Flex, where does this leave them?
Yeah, in a really, really difficult position. Gary O'Neill's, spoke really refreshingly actually about the situation he was aware of before we got to Wolves, and Wolves have stuck by the situation that they're in terms of trying to get out of it and not do anything too hasty. They've had to sell a lot of players to even be in a position they are in, and it is a big frustration for Wolves fans not being able to bring in a striker. They were linked with Che Adams and Danny Ings earlier on, and there was a couple of deals that Gary O'Neill said that they were looking to complete, and then it became very apparent very quickly that those deals were not doable. He did go on to say, though, I won't just sign a player for the sake of it. We need to take people who deserve the chance to play for us and who are good enough. January is tricky. Prices are inflated and people do not want to lose their good players. So just highlighting the difficulty of the window in general, even if you do have money, and sort of trying to reassure the Wolves fans that they're not just going to go and get anybody. He said he's happy to work with the squad that he's got. Obviously, Hwang's been away at the minute, but he's been fantastic for them. Cunha's been fantastic as well, but they do need reinforcements, as we just heard that 2 of the strikers have already gone out as well. So really, really difficult chance for them to bring somebody in, but Gary O'Neill reassuring Wolves fans that they are really working hard to do something.
I think it's important to point out, when the summer window closed, a lot of people thought Wolves have left themselves short. Now, the January window is going to close, and maybe a lot of people are going to think Wolves have left themselves short. But look what Gary O'Neill did after that window closed. So it should give Wolves fans confidence, every confidence, that between now and the end of the season, even if the window closes tomorrow and they haven't brought in a striker, that Gary O'Neill is capable of coaching that side well enough. There'll be, the unlikely scenario that they're going to get sucked into a relegation battle. I think Cunha's impressed a lot of people this season. He's kind of shifted over to the left-hand side recently. Bellegarde has moved into a more forward position in a kind of false 9 role, so he might prove another option in the forward areas. So, look, if it closed tomorrow, I don't think Wolves fans... there'll be some disappointment, but I don't think it's crisis time for Wolves.
You've got to give Gary O'Neill so much credit for the job he's done there already, taken over just 4 or 5 days before the start of the season. They should have got a result against United at Old Trafford in that first game.
No comment.
They're 13 points clear. I think Gary O'Neill will feel they should have had a penalty in that game late on.
No comment
as
again.
well. 13 points clear of the relegation zone. I think it's been so impressive. He's played Hwang and Cunha out of position, and they've helped score goals, because last season they scored, I think, 30 goals out of 38 Premier League matches. It's frustrating for Wolves fans. They want to see players come in, but when you consider the players they signed in January, they spent a huge amount of money last January. They had to let go of a lot of key players like Ruben Neves in the summer just to try and balance the books. It does feel like this is going to be a season where Wolves can't really push on now. They've done so well, but with the limited transfer funds available, I think it is a case of consolidation and get to summer, and hopefully Gary O'Neill, because he deserves to, be given a pot of money to spend.
Right, well, let's move on to Crystal Palace then. They've had a bid rejected by Blackburn for midfielder Adam Wharton. The bid was understood to have been a substantial offer in the region of £18 million. Talks are continuing, and Palace are considering whether to follow up with another offer. Dave, should they? Is he the type of player they need?
Listen, given Crystal Palace were interested in Kalvin Phillips, it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to go for someone like Adam Wharton. If people haven't seen him, he has got everything to be a Premier League star of the future. I saw him last season and I watched him play, and I thought he was 28. I thought he was a seasoned pro. Just given the way that he's able to take the ball off the centre-backs. And he's one of those players that when he's on the ball, it feels like the game has slowed down, but actually it hasn't. He's just managed to negotiate a little bit of space and be able to play the right pass. As I say, he's got a great passing range. He can play off both feet as well, left and right. Off the ball, he's already a physical athlete. And to think this is probably his real breakthrough season this year, I think what Blackburn fans might be a bit surprised at is that the fact that Premier League clubs are going for him now and rather wait to the summer just to see how he gets on for the rest of the season. But you know, he's got everything to be a top player in the Premier League. So, you know, Blackburn fans will be hoping to keep hold of him. But credit again to Crystal Palace, credit to Dougie Freedman, the sporting director. They have got a track record of recognising talent from the Championship. It's out there and you can get value for money. Brilliant place to play your football.
OK, what about Chelsea then? Pochettino said he's happy with his squads. Conor Gallagher, though, has been spoken about throughout this window. Is there any chance he could go, Dave?
I mean, never say never with Chelsea. I mean, we started the window with Chelsea and Ian Maatsen. We started the window with Conor Gallagher, and now it's Amanda Broja. Now we're talking about Gallagher again. Now, Maatsen has obviously gone and left, but that's on a loan deal initially. So it's not bringing an immediate boost to Chelsea's finances, and that's what a lot of the talk has been around, is that Chelsea need to comply with PSR and they need an immediate boost to their finances in order to do so. And the way to do that quickly is to sell on a player for what, you know, is that key phrase, pure profit, a kind of homegrown player. So the fact that Broja, it seems like, is being priced out and clubs aren't able to raise the money that Chelsea would look for Armando Broja, it wouldn't surprise me then if clubs are looking at Conor Gallagher and think, well, if that's a more reasonable opportunity for us, we can pounce. And, you know, we talk about January being an opportunity where clubs might see something where they can get some value for money or manage to get in a long-term target. I think you know, you can see both scenarios happening between now and the end of the window. You can see a scenario where Conor Gallagher leaves.
The Chelsea fans would be devastated,
surely. A scenario where he stays.
Especially if he went to a club like Tottenham.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, OK, Sheffield United then. Atletico Madrid keeper Ivo Gerbic had his medical yesterday. James, do you think he'll be one of a few through the door before deadline day?
Well, Chris Wilder confirmed that medical yesterday in his news conference and did say they're close to bringing in a couple of players. So Gerbic will provide much-needed competition in the goalkeeper stakes alongside Wes Foderingham. We know centre-back is another area they're really looking at the moment. There was interest in Joe Worrell at Nottingham Forest. That's still there. Mason Holgate, now this is a really interesting one. Everton defender, currently on loan at Southampton, but he's only played 5 times in the Championship for them so far this season. Hasn't played in the league since November. So one thing we know, those are 2 situations they want to try and solve in this window. They did make a signing, though, yesterday. They signed a centre-back in the form of St Patrick's Athletic defender Sam Curtis. Now, he's a youngster, a Republic of Ireland under-21 international. He'll team up the Sheffield United under-23, so won't play this season. But Chris Wilder's very excited about signing him. Let's look at the situation Sheffield United are in at the moment. 10 points from 21 matches. No side have stayed up with that number of points or fewer at this stage of a Premier League season. They've got their work cut out, but they're certainly looking to back Chris Wilder in this market.
Right. Time for a quick break, but after that we will bring you the thoughts of the Newcastle manager Eddie Howe. What does the future hold for Miguel Almiron? A reminder of the breaking transfer news this hour. Kalvin Phillips is now a West Ham player. He's joined on a straight loan deal, and he has had this to say about the move. I'm really pleased to be here. There's always been a lot of speculation about me moving to West Ham, so I'm really excited to get going now. And David Moyes has also spoken. He said, we're really pleased to bring a player of Kalvin's quality to West Ham United. And West Ham fans have been getting in touch this morning as well, using the hashtag #TransferTalk. I'll read a couple of them out now. Chris Flynn Hutt says, Kalvin Phillips will be beneficial for West Ham due to his strong defensive abilities, passing range and versatility in midfield. His work rate and ability to break up opposition attacks. Superb signing. Stephen Redmond says, why wouldn't I be happy to strengthen our midfield? I think Souček will be the player that becomes the sub, but he'll still be a very important player. I'd even think about Souček dropping to centre-half at some point. Come on, you Irons. OK, keep those tweets coming in using the hashtag #TransferTalk. Right, away from that move and to Newcastle United. It could be a busy end to the window for them. Kieran Trippier, Miguel Almiron and Callum Wilson's futures have all been up in the air. Well, the Newcastle boss, Eddie Howe, has just been speaking to the media. Let's hear what he's had to say.
We'll start with Kieran Trippier because of the interest in him from Bayern Munich. Right now, what is the situation with Kieran Trippier?
I think there are a few things to say on Kieran's situation. We obviously hope he'll stay, and I'm very confident he will and be part of our long-term future. But I have to make it clear that he's never asked to leave or even questioned his future here. He's always been fully committed, and we've had a lot of conversations in the last week, and it's always been about Newcastle. And I think it's very important that I made that clear and got that out there to everybody, that his commitment to Newcastle shouldn't be questioned.
Has it been a difficult week for him?
I don't think it's been a difficult week. I think it's a huge compliment that a club like Bayern are interested in him. It's no surprise to me because he's an outstanding player, and I think for us and for me, sat here now, I want to keep our best players. I want to keep every player in the squad that is very thin on the ground at the moment. So contemplating losing a player at this stage would be very difficult for me personally, but especially our best players, and Kieran's certainly one of those.
And you said that you hope that he stays. Do you feel this situation is now finished, or is there a feeling that maybe something else could happen in the final few days of the window?
No, his situation's finished as far as everyone's concerned, Kieran, myself. But I've just been in football long enough to never, ever say 100% because I don't want to look stupid. But no, Kieran's 100% committed, and we definitely want to keep him.
There's also a lot of speculation about Miguel Almiron with interest from Saudi Arabia. So what is the situation with him regarding his future?
Yeah, very similar, really. I mean, there's been a lot of noise and a lot of speculation about his future. But certainly as his manager, I'm desperate to keep him. He's been an integral part since I've come to the club, and in a sense of his contribution's been immense, whether that's goal scoring last season, work rate and discipline and commitment and professionalism all throughout his time. But yeah, there has been a lot of noise, and that noise comes from somewhere. But hopefully we can keep him when the window shuts quickly.
How much of a factor is it at this stage of the transfer window, with less than a week to go, that if you were to lose somebody important to sell them, that you wouldn't have a lot of time to replace them, even if you've been doing work in the background to prepare for this kind of eventuality?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been a difficult window so far, as you can imagine, for us, because it's been the first time since I've been manager of the club that we've been linked with players leaving. And that creates an unsettling dynamic. Now, I think a lot of those rumours have been that. They're just rumours. There's been speculation. There's been no truth behind it. Not all of it. But as I say, I'm trying to prepare a team to win our next game, and we want to keep the squad intact, and we want to keep our best players. So that's my determination. But obviously aware of the club side, and financial fair play is affecting all football clubs. You look at this window, it's been very, very strange, very different to last year. And that's a consequence of that, and we're no different to any other club.
Last one on this before I ask you about Fulham. Will it still be your intention, even if nobody leaves, if you can, to try to bring somebody in over the next few days?
Yeah, there's no guarantee on that. We're, of course, working with the club again and seeing what we can do the other way. yeah, no guarantees. But we're still doing our work and preparing as if we can.
Right, some more breaking transfer news to bring you now. And Rangers have agreed a deal with FC Nordsjælland to sign midfielder Mohamed Diamonde. The club will pay a fee in excess of £4.3 million. Diamonde is waiting to be granted a work permit before he can travel to Glasgow to complete the move. We'll keep you updated here on Sky Sports News. OK, before that, we were hearing from Eddie Howe. Some interesting things there, weren't there? He was talking about Miguel Almiron. He said, as his manager, desperate to keep him, but he did say the noise comes from somewhere. OK, right, let's talk about this noise then. Dave, how likely is it that Miguel leaves in this window?
I think it's come from somewhere because the Saudi Arabian side, Al Shabab, are confident about signing Miguel Almiron before the end of the transfer window. The whole situation around Newcastle is them having to move a player out in order to get a player in. Now, it feels like at this point in time in the window, Miguel Almiron is the player who is most likely to leave at this stage. There's been talk about Trippier, about Callum Wilson, but I think from Eddie Howe and Newcastle's point of view, Miguel Almiron represents a player that they can get a good fee for, a high fee for, and someone that plays in a position where they have got other players that could fill in by the end of the season. That would then give them wriggle room in order to bring in a midfielder. I think it was interesting what Eddie Howe said there around, I'm hoping to keep him. I think he said, I'm desperate to keep him for his goal scoring last season, his work rate, his commitment, his discipline. It listed off a lot of his Miguel Almiron's qualities. I just wonder whether, if Eddie Howe's made those feelings clear to the hierarchy at Newcastle, whether, that might swing it in the manager's favour. I think Eddie Howe's got a lot of credit in the bank at Newcastle, and, whether, it will be a business decision in the end if it goes through for Miguel Almiron. And maybe Eddie Howe might have to take that on board. It was a very different tone when he was talking about Kieran Trippier, wasn't it? Because he said his commitment to Newcastle shouldn't be questioned. He said the squad's very thin and Kieran is 100% committed. James, what did you make of those comments about Trippier?
Really interesting. And he kicked off the press conference by saying, I have a lot of things to say on this. I have to make it clear he's never asked to leave or questioned his future. The situation is finished as far as I'm concerned. Though he did give a disclaimer at the end saying that you never know what can happen in transfer windows. He's been in the business long enough and he doesn't want to look silly by the end of it. But I think that's that done when it comes to Kieran Trippier. It was a strange move. It would have been a strange move, you think, for Newcastle to let him go in this window, especially where they're at in their season. At the moment, 14 points off fourth. They're in a situation where they could put themselves back into contention to qualify for the Europa League and the Champions League if they put their form together, or they could completely slide off. And we know Kieran Trippier is so important for Newcastle, created more chances than anybody else this season, a massive part of the way they play. Their vice-captain, their talisman, the first player signed by the new Saudi owners. So he was somebody who, if they sold him, unless they got £20 million, which I think would have been unrealistic, it wouldn't have represented decent business in terms of the profit they'd make on him. But I think Newcastle fans, as Eddie Howe said himself there, it's the first window where we've been linked with players moving away from the football club rather than players coming in. I think for Eddie Howe now, he just wants to get through this window, keep the senior players there, with the knowledge that this summer there will be an overhaul in that squad. And unfortunately for Eddie Howe and Newcastle, if they want to bring players in, some key players may need to depart.
And we have seen some more quotes regarding Callum Wilson. And he said he's 100% committed to Newcastle United. We want 2 fit strikers and we want to keep him. But obviously some things are out of my control. He was talking generally about players in that situation, but it was in the question for Callum Wilson. And I think what we can take from that, I think Eddie Howe's handled that really, really well in terms of giving Newcastle fans the balance and the perspective of reality of there may be some things that we may have to do because, PSR requires us to do that. But I want to keep these players, and these players are an integral part of what we do. But like you said, the Trippier situation, done. But Almiron and Wilson, I'm not sure.
Right, OK, and Newcastle fans were up in arms on social media last night. Why flex? What can we read into this? Our social media expert has dissected it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not one of those.
You are.
Well, it stems from Amanda Staveley posting from the iconic dining room at Alnwick Castle, which, if you haven't seen it, is infamous from the Newcastle United doc, that basically anytime there is financial situations being discussed, strategy being discussed in that documentary, and Anthony Gordon was subsequently signed off the back of it, they know that business gets done in there. So a lot of Newcastle United fans, probably quite rightly so, are sort of linking that and saying, Amanda, what's happening? Are we going to see some players coming in? So a difficult time. I don't think we can be sit here saying it definitely means this or it definitely means that. But definitely, I can see why Newcastle fans would be excited, and maybe Amanda Staveley can clarify that post fairly soon, because Newcastle fans are going to want to know exactly what's going on there.
It was a nice Easter egg, wasn't it, from Amanda Staveley to leave that picture of Alnwick Castle.
Alnwick, correction, you're a social media expert.
If Tom White was in that chair, he'd be off. They filmed Harry Potter there, didn't they? So maybe Newcastle needs some magic in a final.
Yeah, and there was a helicopter as well, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
Yeah. So do you think it could be a busy few days in Newcastle?
I think in terms of holding on to players, to be honest with you, I think with this Almiron situation, I think you can clearly see that Eddie Howe was non-committal there. He said, look, we've spoken about how well he's done at Newcastle, how important he is to what they do, but I think the busy side of it could be making sure they keep players rather than them bringing any in.
I think for Newcastle and Eddie Howe, they'll want to ensure this situation with Miguel Almiron is solved quite quickly, because if they are to recoup a decent fee for him, then that gives them headroom from a profit and sustainability point of view, which means they could bring in that midfielder they're desperate to bring in, or a like-for-like replacement for Almiron too. So I think with 7 days left of the window, they'll want to make sure they know where they're at with those days to go. And if Almiron is going to go, they give themselves enough time to bring in somebody who can help save Newcastle's season, because it's been a really difficult few months. And maybe that post from Amanda Staveley was to put a bit of positive spin on things, because we've spoken to Newcastle fans and I think they're a bit concerned about some of these cult heroes leaving the football club and this squad who's been so brilliant for the last 2 years or so being broken up.
What do you think the priority would be? They could bring in one player in this window.
I think it would be midfield, because you look at the injuries they've got in that area. Unfortunately for Newcastle, Sandro Tonali is suspended until the start of next season. Joe Willock's been out injured. Joelinton might not play for Newcastle again, potentially, if his contract situation is not sorted out. He's not going to be back in May as well. So they're really struggling in that area of midfield. So that seems like a priority area for them. So I think if you ask Eddie Howe if you can bring in one player in this window, he'd say, give me a centre midfielder, and he can try and make it work in the other positions.
OK, right, time for another quick break, but plenty still to come this morning, and there's still time for teams to grab a bargain. We'll look at some big-name free agents that are available. Stay with us. Good morning, Transfers. A reminder of the breaking news this hour. West Ham have confirmed the loan signing of Kalvin Phillips from Manchester City. The deal does not include an option to buy in the summer, and we've taken a look back at a timeline of his career so far.
As a boy from being in this city, I've always wanted to play for this team.
I've seen his journey from being a young lad to where he is now, and been a pleasure to see it and go and get what you deserve.
He kind of epitomises the club. Like, every time he goes out there, he gives 100%.
Oh, Phillips! Tremendous goal!
We appointed Marcelo Bielsa to chase the dream of bringing back Leeds United to the Premier League.
He wanted me to play a totally different position to what I have been playing. Obviously I knew I was capable of playing that position, but I didn't quite know that I was going to play as well as what I did. And just keeping me on my toes all the time, always making sure that my weight is always down. He's massive for weights and fitness and stuff like that. He mentioned that he wanted to make me one of the best players, in the Championship.
The evolution of Phillips is a constant one. He has a lot of capacity to analyse and criticise himself. He finds what he needs to improve.
Chance for Mario once more! He's done it! Devastation for Leeds United.
Not many people know this, but the day after I watched the game, I was in like a bad way. I was crying and stuff for like a good week or so, just gutted about what had happened. And after that game, I thought, is it time for me to leave? Is it time for me to go to the Premier League? But I knew that there was unfinished business, and I knew that if I was to be able to take Leeds back into the Premier League, then it'd be a life-changing moment for me and my family.
The long, arduous, gruelling journey back to the Premier League is complete for Leeds United.
Never felt a moment like it in my life. Yeah, it was just crazy. As you see, the celebrations were mental.
Breaking news. Let's focus on that to England squad. There's another new face in midfield. Leeds' Kalvin Phillips rewarded for his performances in central midfield in the club's promotion to the Premier League.
Kalvin is a player who we've been very impressed in this particular role he plays at Leeds. But it's a position we need some competition for places in. We're interested to look at him at this early stage of the season.
He rang me this morning on the way into training, and obviously I was very nervous. I didn't really know what to say, but obviously a very happy person, and just to break the news to my family is the most important thing.
Kalvin is a fabulous boy to work with, so unassuming, and I thought his performance was outstanding.
It's funny that he's kind of been labelled the Yorkshire Pearl.
He trusts me a lot to play every minute. It's an honour for me.
He's just turned into, I think, probably one of the best holding midfielders in the Premier League.
Oh, Jack Harrison! Now they can breathe huge sighs of relief.
Hometown club, and to keep us up on the last day is an amazing feeling.
We're going to focus on Kalvin Phillips. The England midfielder has joined the Premier League champions from Leeds on a 6-year contract.
One of the main reasons why I wanted to come was to be coached by Pep. He's one of the best managers in the world.
When Chiqui decide to bring one player is because they know he can play with us and they are good. From the shoulder again, is every time he's out. And when the doctors say when you go out 3 or 4 times the shoulder, the only solution is to make a surgery.
These are the headlines. Kalvin Phillips, who's been out with that shoulder injury, he's in the squad.
We're going to have to build his fitness level, but he's available, he's free of injury. We don't have a lot of cover for that role.
He arrived with overweight.
Why is he overweight?
I don't know. He didn't arrive in the condition to training sessions.
Pep wasn't too happy, which is totally understandable because, you're more likely to get injured, you're more likely to do something, and especially with a track record that season of being injured.
To fight with Rodri, for the benefit of all of us. In the details, maybe struggle a little bit more. We talk with him, the club, maybe the chance to go loan, because maybe we don't have a lot of minutes ahead, and he decided, no, I want to stay, more than welcome. I feel so sorry for my decisions for him, I said many times. He doesn't deserve for 1 second where I don't give him minutes. I'm so sorry.
I want to play football, I want to play as much football as possible, and over the last year and a half, I've been able to do that. Some of that obviously I'm going to have to think about, and hopefully, my chance does come, but if it doesn't, then, I've got to make other decisions as well.
So Kalvin Phillips about to start the next stage of his journey, a loan spell at West Ham. And you West Ham fans are excited this morning. Marky Boy says Kalvin Phillips is a great signing, quality player who'll fit right in alongside Alvarez, Ward-Prowse with Paquetá, Kudus and Bone in front of them. There's definitely happy days ahead. And Holly says very excited for Phillips. Can't wait to see how he does in the infamous claret and blue. OK, so just 6 days remain in the January transfer window, and we have picked out some names that are free transfers. OK, so we've got David De Gea, Jesse Lingard, Diego Costa and Matty Longstaff. Right, so any of these players, do you think they could be on the move this month?
David De Gea seems like it feels unfathomable that he's not found another club yet. You know, Flex should have watched him closely. I mean, what was your expectation of David De Gea once he left Manchester United?
Yeah, I mean, even the way he left was really strange. I don't think it was handled in the best situation, and in my opinion, someone who's had as big an impact on Manchester United in recent times, although it hasn't been great overall, deserved a much better send-off than what he got. Still hasn't even had a testimonial or managed to come back to the club. It wasn't great. But I certainly expected him to go to another team during the summer. And some people can say, oh, that means David De Gea is finished and, oh, nobody wants him if he was that good. Why isn't he not at another club? I think that's absolute nonsense. I just think that
it could have been his decision
absolutely.
as well.
I just think maybe he hasn't got the right opportunity and he's earned the right. Every player's got the right to decide what's best for them and their family and their careers. And my opinion is that the right move hasn't really come for him yet. So I was surprised to not see him at a club. But for me, he's still a good goalkeeper. You know, I think for reasons at Manchester United, he was making a lot of mistakes, and Erik ten Hag had a different vision, wants the team to play in a different way. Manchester United have brought in Andre Onana, and we're still no closer to finding out who Manchester United's number one actually should be, because he's been up and down with his form as well. So, no, very surprising, and I think a lot of teams would love to have David De Gea.
I think he would feel like he's a Champions League level goalkeeper, so for him it's about waiting for the right opportunity, and so far from his point of view it hasn't come along yet.
What about Jesse Lingard? Where could he go?
I mean, he's a footballer that doesn't play football at the moment, it feels like. You know, he had a fantastic loan move at West Ham, and also, you know, let's not forget, he was a big part of the good things, some of the good things that happened at Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson left. He scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final.
Yep.
You know, he's part of some of United's better moments since Sir Alex Ferguson left the club. He had the good loan spell at West Ham, and then a lot of people thought he should have made it permanent at West Ham, but he ended up going to Nottingham Forest, and things just didn't happen for him there. And now he's in a bit of limbo at the moment where, you know, he's changing representatives, and he seems like he's trying to get a move, but what's holding things back? He's got a checkered injury history. Maybe the financial package that he's being offered so far from other clubs hasn't been up to what he expects, but you feel for his case he will need to find somewhere to play sooner rather than later.
OK, some more breaking transfer news reaching us now. Real Betis are in talks with West Ham over the signing of midfielder Pablo Fornals. Fornals has entered the final 18 months of his contract. OK, let's go back to these free agents behind us then. Diego Costa, lots of clubs looking for a striker. Where could he go?
Well, he did OK at Wolves last season, didn't he? It was an interesting spell, an interesting signing at the time. We need to remember, he's the last Chelsea player to score 20 or more league goals in a season. So maybe he goes back there. They need a striker.
You heard it here first.
As well. But I wanted to talk about Matty Longstaff, actually, because it's quite remarkable that he's without a club, 23 years of age. He was living the dream alongside his brother Sean Longstaff. What a brilliant family that is. And remember, he scored the winner against Manchester United while he's on a youth team contract. £850 a week he's being paid. But he's had so many injuries. He's suffered a dip in form. He was at Colchester United last season. Unfortunately, he suffered an ACL injury and has not been able to pick up a club since. So you'd hope for his sake he can get his career back on track.
Right, OK, that is all we have time for now. But Good Morning Transfers is back at 9 a.m. on Monday. And then we've got plenty more to come today from the team. Transfer Talk is back here at midday. And for a full roundup of all the day's news, you can catch the Transfer Show. It's tonight at 5 and 7 o'clock. And Total Football is next. More reaction to West Ham signing Kalvin Phillips. Plus, we'll hear more from Eddie Howe as well.